Here we are on page 67. Make sure you watch the video previous to this one. Watch this video first, title, watch that first. So now we're back in standard form, which we've already talked about. It's the real pretty one. It's y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. We already talked about that. And that last part, when we did the parent graph of a quadratic equation, the U shape was called what? Do you remember? It creates a U-shaped curve called a parabola. A parabola. Now, we're not going to use a graphing calculator because you need to be able to do it by hand. But I want to quickly go over the two differences in these equations. You'll notice that the coefficient of the quadratic term, that is a lot of language in what I just said. The coefficient of the quadratic term is 1, and it's positive. When it is positive, when this coefficient is positive, my parabola is going to create like a smiley face. It's positive, it's happy, when this coefficient is 1. When this coefficient is negative, it's sad, and it's going to create like a frowny face. So when it's positive quadratic term coefficient, happy face. When it's negative, it's sad. So if A is positive, then the parabola opens up like a smile. And when A is negative, then the parabola opens down like a frown. So a little bit of rhyming there for you. Okay, so those are the different types of parabolas. Now, when we create this quadratic equation with this parabola, this parabola is very unique. And it has some symmetry to it. So if you drew a line straight down, that parabola, that's the axis of symmetry. That means if you folded the parabola in, the distance is the same on any part of that parabola. Okay? So what is axis of symmetry? It is a vertical line that divides the parabola in half. Now, I want you to notice this. A vertical line. We talked when we did linear equations, the difference between an equation of a vertical line and a horizontal line. And if you go back in your notes, you'll remember that a vertical line, if I asked you the equation of this line right here, it was in the form x equals 4 or x equals something because it had an undefined slope. Remember, my skier was dead. So a vertical line takes the form y equals 4. A horizontal line, remember, was y equals 4. You still had a 0 slope, but my beginning point was 4. So when you had a vertical line, your equation for the line was x equals 4. Okay, just a refresher. Well, an axis of symmetry is a vertical line. You must have it as a linear equation. So when you look at the formula for the axis of symmetry, it's going to be in the form x equals because it's vertical. So this tells the reader that, one, I'm graphing a vertical line because it's x equals, and the formula, which means it works every time, is negative b over 2a. Okay? And we're going to get back to using that formula in a second. Right now, we're just going to go over the language. So now we have this word called vertex. And what is a vertex? It is the turning point of a parabola. So if you look up here, this would be my vertex because it goes down, 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 and then it goes up, 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 up. So it's that point, that turning point. Here it goes up, 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 and then it goes down, 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 down. So at what point does it make that shift between going up and down or down and up? So when the vertex is the lowest point, it's the minimum. And then, so what's the vertex of the highest point? It is the maximum. Okay? Now, I want you to look. Look at all of this language that we're using. We're using vertex. Can you tell me what the vertex is? We're using axis of symmetry. Can you tell me that is it a vertical line? We're looking at parabola. We got quadratic term, linear term, constant term. There is so much language in this short page that you really need to make sure you understand it before you move on. So if you want to go back and refresh your memory before we move on, go ahead and pause and do that. Otherwise, I'm going to go on. All right, and so let's take a look at what this means. Like, how would we graph a quadratic equation in standard form? We're not going to graph them, we're just going to sketch them. So we're not even going to pull out the coordinate plane. I just want to do a few simple things as we're learning what this equation looks like, this quadratic equation looks like. So our axis of symmetry, how do we find it? Well, remember, axis of symmetry is a line, so it's going to look like x equals negative b over 2a. Well, what are the values of b? What are the values of a? Here's how I find it. A is the coefficient in front of my quadratic term, so a equals 1. B is the coefficient in front of my linear term, so b equals 8. And c is my constant term of 15. I don't need c in my axis of symmetry, but I'm just going to throw it out there to make sure you understand. So to find what that axis of symmetry is, I'm just going to evaluate. X equals negative, my b value is 8, over 2 times a, which is 1. And when I simplify this, I get x equals negative 8 over 2, so x equals negative 4. Okay? So my axis of symmetry is x equals negative 4. You must put x equals negative 4 as an axis of symmetry because it's a line. If you put axis of symmetry as negative 4, you don't get any credit there because it is a line. You have to know that it is a line. So my axis of symmetry is negative 4. So then how would I find that vertex? Well, here's what we're going to do. And in class, I'm sure we've talked about this and tried to make you guess, how to check that vertex. But here's what we know. We know that on my sketch, my axis of symmetry is negative 4. So somewhere on this line lies my vertex, because remember, that's the turning point. So we know it's going to open up, the parabola opens up because this coefficient is positive, but my vertex lies somewhere on this line. So all I need to do is find out when x equals negative 4, because that's where it is, the axis of symmetry is negative 4, what is my y value? So all we're going to do is we're going to plug in negative 4 for x. So I'm going to rewrite the equation, and I'm simply going to plug in negative 4 for x. Negative 4 squared plus 8 times negative 4 plus 15. So I get 16 minus 32 plus 15. 16 and 15 is 31 minus 32. So I get y is negative 1. I know I did that fast, but all you're doing is you're evaluating, and we've been doing that all year long. So my y value is negative 1. So my vertex point is negative 4, negative 1, and my parabola opens upward. So all you have to do when you sketch is this. There are a couple things I'm looking for. You got to label your axis of symmetry, x equals negative 4. You got to label your vertex, negative 4, negative 1. I want to see that line of axis of symmetry, so arrows on both ends. And I want to know which way that parabola opens. I want it to open upward. So it's just a quick sketch. I'm not even introducing the coordinate plane now, just a quick sketch. Okay? So let's do another couple examples together. Let's take, let's look at number 2. So my a value is the coefficient here, which is negative 1. My b value is 10. I don't need my c value, but I do know that it's negative 23. So my equation is x equals negative b over 2a. So now I'm just going to evaluate. X equals negative, what's b? It's 10, over 2 times a, which is negative 1. So here I have negative 10 over negative 2. Negative 10 divided by negative 2 is positive 5. So my axis of symmetry is positive 5. That's my axis of symmetry. So the first thing I do on my sketch, I'm going to label my axis of symmetry as x equals 5. Now, when x is 5, what's my y value? That's what I need to find my vertex. So I just take my equation, negative x squared plus 10x minus 23, and I simply plug in 5 for x. Now notice, this negative is not part of the 5 of x, so I'm going to keep that negative outside, and we've been talking about that since day 1. So now I square it. 5 squared is 25, but bring that negative down. Plus 50 minus 23. So that's negative 48 plus 50, which gives me a positive 2. So my vertex is 5, 2, and I'm going to label that 5, 2. And I know my parabola opens down because it's negative. So all I'm doing on my sketch, labeling my axis of symmetry, labeling my vertex, and which way does that parabola go, up or down, okay? All right. So let's do one more. Let's look down at number 7. So number 7 is A equals negative 1 and B equals 4. There is no C. C would equal 0. And like on number 8, A would equal 1, B would equal 0. So be careful there. So I kind of helped you on that one. Number 7. So axis of symmetry is x equals negative b over 2a. So I'm simply plugging in values. Negative, my b value is 4, over 2 times negative 1. So I get negative 4 over negative 2. Negative 4 divided by negative 2 is x equals positive 2. So my axis of symmetry is x equals 2. My sketch here, dotted line, arrows on both ends, x equals 2. That's my axis of symmetry. And now to find my vertex point, I'm simply going to plug in 2 for x and solve for y. So here I get negative 2 squared plus 4 times 2. So 2 squared is 4. Bring down that negative. 4 times 2 is 8. Negative 4 plus 8 is positive 4. So my vertex is 2 and 4. And which way does my graph open? It's negative, so it goes down. So that's the criteria for a sketch, okay? All right, good luck.